right? I mean, the first the development.
I'm gonna go over to you. Control of the meeting is gonna go over to Melina. And let me just get myself in order and we can go ahead and start the meeting properly. Okay. All right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. First order of business, as always, is proof of quorum. We have 3 members present in person, namely Mark, Valerie, and myself, and we have confirmed that Kyle Miller is attending virtually. Ginger is not able to make it, but a quorum has been established with 4. Right? Next order on the order of business is the approval of the minutes from August 22nd. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of October 22nd, 2024?
I will approve the minutes of
August 22nd.
2024.
All right, moved by Mark, seconded by.
Seconded.
Any discussion or shall we vote? All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Tyler,
I vote yes.
okay, the motion is approved 4-0 and the minutes are approved of. In the interest of time, because we have a number of other things, I'm going to restrict my president's report, restrict my comments or my opening comments to the different topics that as they present themselves. So I do not have an independent overall report. I previewed in my letter of a few days ago some of the things we were going to speak about and some of the context behind that. So again, in the interest of time, I will forego a separate report and speak individually on the topics at hand. And that brings us to the owners open forum, the first part thereof. I would invite your questions, thoughts, concerns, comments on any topic that you wish, but I would obviously encourage your comments on some of the issues that are coming up for consideration later in the meeting, namely smoking policy and the doorbell policy, because those are things we are going to consider. Just for organizational and for agenda purposes, we are going to vote on the doorbell policy resolution. For smoking, it is a discussion only. There is no policy pending. This is just a discussion. So on those or other subjects, who would like to start by giving your name and your unit number? All right. Yeah, just thank you for it. We know it's pretty sensitive, but if you can just meander a little bit so that you can project into the camera. Okay.
I'm good.
Yes, you're good. Just project into the owl.
Because the mic's there.
Yes, the mic and the owl are there. So just, you don't have to get super close. You just have to make sure you're projecting into it. So. You're right.
Okay, and I'll try to project my voice, I guess.
You're close enough where you're fine.
Okay, great. So I'm Tandra Turner, unit 1115. And I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of what I've been experiencing here at Hallmark for the past few years, which is harassment from my neighbor. The harassment led to me having to get an emergency protective order because that person threatened to shoot me. And then eventually I had to take the steps to get a 2-year protective order. I'm assuming the board is aware of, I know the president is, and the previous property manager is aware of that. September 13th, someone left a note on my door referring to me as a bitch and a asshole. Again, I just want to make sure that you all are aware of what's going on. I don't know if it's because this happens. I've been here for maybe like 3 years. If this is a commonplace at Hallmark, if this is because I'm a Black woman, I don't know, but it is happening. So when that note was placed on my door, I did inform, again, the board president, and I informed property management. I wasn't clear with the property manager, and I know you're new, in terms of the steps and the actions that back up your perspective of you do not accept or tolerate that level of harassment. I understand that that was something that would be documented, but are there other steps or actions? And so I just want to be clear about that. And also to make you all aware.
You want me to answer?
Sure.
Okay, no worries. So, I don't really know who put the note on you, so that's no problem.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't accuse anyone, I can't do what I recognize it, so, of it. So what my goal is to, I always send out like on Fridays, bullets of different things in reference to some incident that you occur. Again, we're sorry that you going through that and experienced that, but my confusion was I had a person come to me to admit what they did, but it was not the case matter that you're going through now, so that kind of made it twisted. So I don't know if it's that person or the one that you have the protective order on, so that's why I'm like, because when I go accusing people, they come for me.
So I'm not asking you to accuse anyone.
Yeah.
And if clarification is needed, then the follow-up would have been appreciated. I'm not asking you to accuse anyone. I'm asking what are the steps and the actions that back up the claim that it's harassment of this level is not tolerated, of the note is not tolerated. That's all I'm asking.
So again, it will be a notice to every all, because I can't pinpoint one person. So
Right,
it will
right.
be to the community that is not acceptable. If you have any concerns in regards to your neighbors, to come down to the management office to handle.
Okay, and did that note go out? Did that
No,
note?
I said Friday.
Okay, it's for, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I would say it would be good practice in general to say, you know, short of a friendly thank you note or an invitation to a party or something like that, that's innocuous, we really shouldn't be putting anything on anybody's door. I mean, unless it's just the most innocuous sort of everyday thing. Certainly if you have concerns, it should not be addressed in that manner. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I
Amy,
can tell you what happened. The police came over, I'm the next door neighbor, and the police almost brought my door down. And I asked the guy, I said, what is it that you need with me? I said, I was sleeping. I said, I have the right to take my time to get up. I said, I was asleep because that neighbor did not allow me to sleep the previous night. They are the prostitutes that I told you about that get up at 2:40 or 3:40 or 4:40. So I didn't put the note because finally the police came and said, well, I wouldn't be so stupid to write a note. He said, who, did I tell you that? I said, I assume it was a handwritten note. Apparently it was a typed note that somebody put in her door. It wasn't me.
Thank you.
I'm not that low.
Thank you. I would just, you know, for everybody's awareness, of course, all of these meetings are recorded. And so presence and proximity are noted, just for those purposes. Anybody else would like to speak, in the back? Alex?
Yeah, Alex Robertson, I'm in unit 1015. First of all, to my neighbor, I'm appalled to hear that you've been suffering for this for multiple years. And I would urge the board to immediately grant some kind of authorization to deviate from the policy of the installation of an immediate ring camera, so that those situations can be addressed and anyone that would engage in that conduct can be held accountable, because that's not something anyone should have to deal with. The second thing I wanted to raise tonight was the smoking policy that the board's considering. So for the last week, there have been 3 or 4 days where I've come in and the entire hallway on the 10th floor smelled like cigarette smoke. I don't smoke. I know that there are a number of people, including myself here, that have respiratory conditions. I run a HEPA air filter in my unit. It's rated for a space much larger than my unit, but it's not effective to get rid of the smoke smell that's permeating into my unit. So I would urge the board to adopt any smoking on the premises. Someone that wishes to consume nicotine can do that through alternative means. There are patches available, there's vaping available, but to have the common areas inundated, to have the common areas be inundated with cigarette smoke, I think is asking people to put up with something that really they shouldn't be expected to put up with.
Thank you very much. Barbara?
A couple of things, Barbara Rosen, 809 and 614, and I guess they're kind of intertwined. The first one is, I'm just really sorry about everything that you've had to go through. And I think it's really important to add that that is not Hallmark in general. I don't think at all. I guess it impacts the other two things that I want to mention as well. One was just how much fun so many people had at the luau. And I think that part of what happened there was a pent-up demand for community. And I hope that you were able to come, and if you did, I hope, you had a good time and maybe you saw another side of Hallmark. I think that's why it's so important to have a good budget for these parties, because I've got to tell you, T and Joe are great at like squeezing two nickels together, but at some point you got to give them something to work with too. And that kind of leads me to the third thing I wanted to talk about, which is video doorbells. So I kind of came in here with some really major concerns about privacy that I think have been expressed. It has to do with the configuration of our building in terms of which units are across from each other and what that allows them to see in terms of potentially invading each other's privacy. But I want to say, based on what I just heard from you, I keep vacillating, because I think that's a compelling argument for everybody having the ability to protect themselves.
Anybody, anybody that's spoken before, I'm gonna prioritize this.
Donna Boston, 611. And the other thing I'll add is that I've lived here for 42 years. And 22 of those years I was on board, 10 as president. I've also been chairman of the Covenants Committee and a member for like a decade. So I've sort of seen the whole thing. But the other comment that'll add to it is I was a planning commissioner in the city for 22 years. So I have a different perspective of some of this, or an added perspective. I would urge us to have, when I was on the Covenants Committee, I urged that the neighbors, both upstairs, downstairs, next door, enlist them in your cause, because we need some witnesses. When something happens, call them, ask them, email them saying, did you hear something? We need documents. And what you've got for some of the stuff is proof, but you need more to put it together and find out how big a problem it is. Is it just one person? Is it 5 people? What's going on here? I personally have heard from other neighbors about some of the adventures of that corner of the building, in terms of noise and complaints and what have you, but they were not recorded. So I would urge you to, if you want, I'll help you introduce yourself to your neighbors, but encourage that with the support. The other thing is on smoking. As planning commissioner, we've had smoking before the city many times. And when I moved in here in 1992, the lady across the hall from me was a chain smoker, and I am wildly sensitive to smoke. So I figured out quickly a way to smoke-proof my unit. And I have helped a very heavy smoker do the same thing with his unit, so that when he opened his window, we were not sucking smoke all the way down the hallway, because we could smell it all the way down the hallway. And so I can tell you, we can maybe save some discussion time. We cannot outlaw smoking here without grandfathering everybody in. We can't change the rules when you moved in with any kind of ease. And the city theoretically could change the policy, but it's, and because of people that we've got, we're a city that has the major form of housing is multifamily, but townhouses. So you're connected. So there are techniques that you can use. And I'm more than happy to run a course, write a pamphlet, whatever, on how to keep the smoke out of your unit and how to keep the smoke in your unit, if you're the smoker. So just some thoughts.
Valerie, you wanted to speak?
I want to speak directly to you, Ted, because I am sorry, I am shaking. Because you happen to mention you are a Black woman, I'm a Black woman, I've been here for about 17 years. And I can totally feel the fear you feel that someone here is making you feel unwelcome. I've never had that problem, so I am so sorry that someone in this building is making your life hell, because as soon as you walk home, you should feel relaxed and you should be happy in your space. So I'm very sorry that anybody is doing that to you. And I would echo something that Barbara said and that Don said, that I would hope if someone sees someone do anything that is unkind, that you would please, I mean, the level of unkind when you happen to be a minority is painful. And it doesn't take away from anybody else's existence on this earth, but I would hope if anybody sees someone do something like that, please say something. You don't have to say it if you don't feel comfortable standing up and saying to that person, please say it to Melinda, say it to us, say it to somebody to get it to front, because I don't want you to feel as though this building is not welcoming to you.
To be clear, I have had good interactions with a few of my neighbors, so I can say that.
So, thank you for that, LaRonda, and yeah, Melina.
May I say something?
Not right now. If something happens and you want to report it, you know, asynchronously through email or something, or call it down. Of course, Melina, but of course, for anything that rises to this level, you can email, you know, any board member and with, or all of us. So I'm gonna recognize you, but with great caution, because, you know, we do have a lot to go through tonight, and if you have a new point to make, I will
No,
recognize
she
you.
came and complained, and she has appropriated part of my bedroom and my balcony.
Ms. Tweedle, I'm gonna rule you out of order, and you're no longer recognized. That issue has been brought before this board and previous boards for almost a decade, or nearly a decade at this point. It is addressed through other channels that have been addressed, including the Alexandria Police Department. And I just, you know, as the president of this organization, I have a responsibility to maintain, you know, a truthful stance. And so I'm always been very hesitant to address unit to unit questions in an open forum, because I think those are usually resolved independently. But I have to say in no uncertain terms that I know I speak for this entire board, that there is not, nor has there ever been any substantiation to any claim that any unit has ever been used for the purposes described. There has never been any evidence supporting any claim that any unit owner is appropriating the property of another or somehow
Well, you can
building.
enter the.
You're not recognized right now, I'm sorry. There has never been any evidence that any unit has built into another unit or has used the ceiling for any purpose, because there's frankly 6 inches between the ceiling and the next roof.
This is space.
And it's concrete.
And it's concrete. So just, you know, I just feel that I'm not gonna speak any further on that, because it is, you know, being dealt with in another manner, but people are owed a succinct recounting of what is or is not objectively happening.
Bravo, thank you.
Mary Ann Collins,
All
yeah.
right, well,
Coleno?
That's her, yeah.
It's
No,
yes, it's already legal, we've been in contact continuously with our attorneys, so it's being dealt with at the appropriate.
Have they visited the unit? Because that's what I mean.
All right, anybody else like to contribute before we move on to the rest of the discussion for tonight? All right, there will be another owners forum after the rest of the business, but we want to move on to the board discussion. I want to go a little bit out of order here, because I want to respect the fact that we do have an external visitor from our extended family, namely Hillary Late from Legum and Norman. And so I'd like to prioritize her participation right now because I hear that she may have something that she might need to run to. So I'm going to move her up a little bit. And so that's going to be window patio finance presentation from Legum and Norman. So Hillary, if you're out there, you have the floor for what you'd like to tell us.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. For those of you who
We
I've
can
not
see
met.
you, but we cannot hear you. Maybe this will do the trick.
Hold on, Henry, you have to.
Can you try again?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. You have the
Okay.
floor.
Okay, great. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Hillary Lape. I am Legum and Norman's Executive Vice President. I appreciate the invitation to come and talk with you tonight about this big project that you are approaching, kind of some funding and financing options that you have for that. I was hoping, I don't have a formal presentation prepared. I did review your reserve study. I reviewed your financials and was really hoping for kind of a two-way conversation about the options that are before you and kind of what direction the board is thinking or leaning towards. So I'll jump right in just with some general information that I have gathered, in preparation for tonight. Obviously, associations have a number of different options when it comes to financing a large project like this. They can either fund it from the funds that are available to them that have been collected over time to fund those, naming the reserve funds that have been accumulated over time for that work, or two, through a special assessment, or three, through a loan or financing arrangement with a banking institution, either to finance the entire project through a loan or a portion of the project through a loan. I will tell you, my recommendation right off the bat is that you can eliminate the option of a special assessment. In my opinion, I'm not a vote. I am not a decision maker, but in my opinion, the Hallmark has other opportunities and options available to it that are much more appealing than a special assessment. Typically, we would only recommend a special assessment in situations where you need an immediate influx of cash to pay expenses, to pay the invoices of the association. That is not the case, which is good. It's a good position to be in, where you're not facing that kind of urgent need for an influx of money. So my recommendation would be to consider either one, funding this from the funds that you have available to you, with the caveat that that's obviously going to deplete your reserves almost entirely. So you would have to have a plan in place to build those back up so that you can fund other expenses. I did look at your reserve study, which was done fairly recently, and it does consider this project. It looks like it's not quite the amount that the project is going to cost. It looks like it may be a $500,000 difference or so, but it does contemplate the project and shows you kind of the impact that funding the project out of reserves would have on the association's reserve balance. Probably more ideal for the association would be to work with some banking institutions to get some proposals for financing a portion of that so that you don't deplete your reserves all the way. I think you can certainly fund a good portion of the project from the money that you've accumulated, and you could supplement that sum with a loan through a banking institution. We work with a number of them. We probably have 20 clients right now that have active loans through banks that give loans to communities. So that's kind of the quick and dirty of what I have seen and some of my recommendations for you, but happy to take any questions that the board might have or continue the discussion.
Sure, I have an initial question, then I'll let my colleagues jump in, which is, in terms of the fact that, what factors go into things like rate determinations for this? We're such a special kind of entity. I mean, is it the strength of our receivables? Is it our delinquency rate? Is it, what sort of things go into making a association such as ours more or less creditworthy? And based on that, do you think that we would be in position for favorable rates?
Yeah, great question. So we would definitely want to pair you up with banks that give loans. Part of their business or their entire business is to give loans to community associations. And there's a number of them, but some of the biggest factors in what those rates are going to be and how qualified you are to receive a loan would be the delinquency rate, which yours is in a very strong position, as well as the loan versus the amount that you're collecting in your assessments each year. So they're going to look at how much money you're bringing in, depending on, their qualification process. They may require a portion of those assessments be deposited into their bank as collateral to, kind of work as secured funds towards that loan. But every lending institution is different. But yes, I'm not a lender, just for full disclaimer. But just a quick, kind of review of your financial position. I don't see any red flags that would make a lender not interested in lending you money.
Okay. My colleague says, Kyle, if you're on the line and wish to have a question, you can just jump in. Otherwise, I'll recognize either Mark or LaRonda, Valerie, if they have any questions.
Yeah, I had one question.
Okay, Kyle, you're up.
I just wondering, what's the average duration for an association that takes out this type of loan for repayment?
It really depends. It mostly is going to depend on, what is palatable to the association as far as monthly payments, as well as how much money you're actually borrowing. So currently with those 20 clients that we have that have active loans, they range anywhere from $400,000 to $20 million. And obviously those terms look very different. So really it's going to depend. And when we reach out to banks, if this is something that you're interested in, we would make contact with them. We would ask for some proposals. We'd give them some preliminary information about the project as well as your financial position. And they would come back with several options for you to consider, which would include, varying terms that will show you kind of the impact on the monthly assessments and how long, what that monthly payment would be.
Okay, so League of Norman doesn't have with your expertise, you don't say, hey, this is probably like a 6-year, 10-year, knowing our financial position as well as what the project entails. I know it's all going to be fleshed out in the details, but we're looking at a thing, that's what I'm just trying to get. We're looking at a decade on average that's historically seen, or
yeah, I think
that's all I'm looking for.
I think it just really depends on, do you want to finance the entire project, the whole, $3.7 million through a loan, or do you want to supplement what you have with $1 million loan? There's a big difference between paying back $1 million versus paying back 3.7 million. I would say if you went all the way to 3.7 million, an average term for that amount of loan would be about 10 years. I think if you went $1 million, I think you could probably do that with a shorter term. And we would also want to make sure we're talking about, prepayment options, that you have the ability to prepay at any time without penalty, and those types of things. But I would say depending on the amount, somewhere between 4 and 10 years at the very max.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Valerie, do you have any?
No, I don't.
My only follow-up question is to kind of place this back into the context of, our budget and everything like this. And so my understanding, and this is more of a knowledge check, Hillary, if I'm speaking it correctly, is, let's say an association like ours, let's use round numbers. Let's say we contribute $100,000 a month to our reserves as is. We go ahead and we take out a loan, the payment of which is $50,000 a month, and it's for the entire project. It would seem to me that in our budgeting, we would simply contribute less to our reserves because the money that we would have been fortifying ourselves with would just simply be diverted to the loan, and the only delta, of course, only in scare quotes, is the interest charge that is paid. Is that a correct statement?
That is a correct statement. So we would reduce your reserve contribution because you've gotten that kind of influx of cash into your reserves. And then we would budget for the loan side of things, which would really make that up plus the interest. Exactly. That's exactly how that math works.
Okay. All right. So it seems like, for us, the next steps vis-a-vis this part of the process would be, if we decide this is the route we're going to go, we would work with you to essentially shop the, you obviously understand the landscape and know these banks that specialize in this sort of product. And so, we would reach out through Leggman Norman to see, the marketplace up there and the rate landscape and all those things. So that would be the way forward, right?
That's right.
Okay. All right. If there are no other questions from the board, Hillary, I prioritized you because I understand you might have to jump. So I thank you for your time and let you go on to the next thing.
Sounds great. Yep, off to another board meeting. So thank you guys. Thanks for moving me up in the agenda. And I look forward to hearing from you. We look forward to working with you through this.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. All right, and I apologize to everyone. I had turned off my video. I didn't realize that it was turning off the entire owl. So it's now back on. The owl's eyes are now back in its possession. So all right, and unless there's anything else, I think we'll just, receive those comments from Hillary and help inform our conversation going forward. In terms of the window patio facade project, I emailed the full documentation from previous solicitations to the board. I think that our next step would be, to examine those closely and maybe as a goal for next time to, revalidate the scope of work or a range of options that we would want to have presented in a new procurement. But does anybody think there are any other steps, or should we just ask TDL to essentially prepare a procurement packet for our review next time?
Is there any harm in doing that?
I would go ahead and ask TDL to prepare a procurement package. Because we know what all the options are.
Yeah.
Because they're not gonna change, they haven't changed in 5 years. We just need to do it.
Okay. All right. I will communicate with Chris at TDL, and that will be the next set of documents that I'll distribute to the board, and we'll be working in concurrent paths, keeping Leggman Norman in the loop so that they can get a sense of if the procurement is going out for 3.7, but it's 3.8 or 3.5, and or however that affects the financing question. So we'll just keep them in the loop. So that'll be the next step on that, will be to reopen, to produce a new procurement package for us to approve and send out to the world. The small world of people who do this sort of work. All right. Any other comment on that subject? Okay. I want to move on for board purposes for the smoking policy. I know that we don't have everybody here. We do have 4 out of 5. The reason I put this on as a non-voting discussion point for the board is I don't want to ask Reese Broom at hundreds of dollars an hour to produce a draft policy statement unless there is at least a tentative feeling on the board that it would be something that we want to formally consider. So that's why I wanted to solicit some views on this, because if everybody's, against it, or 4 or 5 are against it, there's really no point in then reaching out to the lawyers, spending all the money and getting the documents, prepared and things like that. So the reason it's on the agenda is, as I said in my letter, because it did get a very large response, a very large affirmative response in the survey. So I feel that really requires us to discuss it seriously. But so the contours of it are ban smoking in all of the units, full stop, no exceptions. Ban with exceptions for existing owners. Ban and extend to the balconies. Other things. So just thoughts. You're not committing anything. Just what's your feeling that we should go forward with some sort of restriction, or should we table it?
Well, based on what Donna said, I mean, I would agree, and I'm sorry I don't remember your name in the back.
Alex.
Alex, okay. Based on what Alex said, but versus what Donna said, it sounds like I want team Alex. I can't stand smoking. I would like it to end. But if in fact I guess if what Donna says is correct, we can make it a rule, but it's not gonna matter because the people who are already here are gonna still be allowed to, smoke.
And
Briefly.
we're dealing with an area that we don't own. City is the one that has to be involved. And we've got to realize that it's been discussed multiple times in and out, and sometimes less public than others. It's not gonna fly in this place for a whole bunch of reasons. So I think we'd be better off, more productive, to look at alternate ways of dealing with smoke.
In fairness, in the letter that I sent out, and in 2021, the Virginia legislature changed the law that, and it does specifically allow governing boards of condominiums to restrict or prohibit smoking, even in, the key word is even in individually occupied real estate. And so that and only that is really the question. We can already and do regulate, you can't smoke in the party room, right? Or we can't smoke in the lobby, right? Those are common elements. But the question at hand here is whether to extend that into the individual units that are admittedly owned by all of us. Or how that affects balconies.
Just to add really quickly, and there are precedents right here in the city of Alexandria of condominium associations that have already done that.
And how would we make sure, let's say somebody below me, and I believe is below me, smokes weed every so often. How would I then figure out who that person is and let's say find them? How would we go about doing that?
Yeah, enforcement's always an important element. I mean, I don't have an answer for that other than, I buying a flock of German shepherds. I don't really know. I don't know, other thoughts? I mean, Kyle or Mark, do you have a strong view on this, one way or the other?
What we've already done.
For me, I think the enforcement is an issue, but also I want everyone to know, like, it would be everything, right? So it would, somebody around me smokes a lot of weed. It's very pungent. So, I mean, that would be factored in as well. So we're not just talking cigarettes, we're talking pretty much all things. I'm good with it, but it's going to be all things, or it's not nothing.
Okay.
It smell burn, no?
Right now, we're just gonna hold off because there will be an owners forum again in 10 minutes for people to share thoughts. But I just want to get Mark's thought. What if you have?
I mean, this has come up for many years. It came up a couple of years ago, or last year when I was president still. We decided at that point that it was something that we had other things to focus our energy on. And it's a very difficult thing to enforce in the first place. So why go through the effort of this?
So the question I'd like to ask, the other board members is, should I reach out to Reese Broom to prepare a potential draft policy for further discussion? Or is it something where we would just like to stop the discussion now and think about other mitigating strategies? Again, every time we ask for a policy resolution, that's hundreds of dollars on the clock, and that's why I don't have one tonight. I mean, should we table? Should we ask for a resolution? You want to mull on it more? All of those things, we can do any of those things.
I want a resolution.
All right. Kyle, how do you feel about asking for a draft resolution?
I don't have a problem asking for a draft resolution, provided legal can say, here's a means of enforcement.
Okay.
Because if we can't enforce it, then why do it, right? And then if we can't enforce it, then let's go to mitigating strategies to help other of our neighbors cope with it, deal with it, whatever. But if legal has a way of like saying, this is what you can do if you find somebody smoking in their unit, then great, let's go forward with the resolution. But If legal comes back and says, well, you catch them and they go on the naughty list, well, great, then we all just become hall monitors.
Okay.
Over.
Okay, so what I'll do then, based on what I've heard, is I'll contact Todd and Kristen, and I'll just have a conversation, right, about that issue. So that if they respond and say, yeah, we've written these 100 times over, and here are our enforcement mechanisms, then I would ask him to prepare a draft resolution. If he says, no, I know what you mean, we do these all the time, but nobody can ever enforce them, then we will come back to, this meeting and see if there's another way forward. I noticed there's some folks who are asking questions online, and we will monitor those, and we'll start out with those at the next part of the owner's open forum. But that'll be the way forward now for the smoking. We'll feel out from the attorneys, what their view is on enforcement strategies and the probability of success thereof, and we'll play it by ear from there. Okay. Next up is an actual resolution. It is draft policy resolution number 99. 99 times since the beginning of this organization, there have been policy resolutions. So we're on the cusp of one that we're going to need to celebrate, whatever number 100 is. I think we'll have to, I don't know, perhaps Mr. Greenberg will have to move it from the floor. Anyway, policy resolution number 99 draft form has been distributed. It would, in a nutshell, allow under certain conditions, a manner, the installation of, I'm calling them Ring style, so that we're not endorsing the Ring company or whatever, but Ring style camera, doorbell cameras according to the policy resolution, on the frame of the door. So that's a question I want to kind of buttonhole, whether we want to still keep to that. So the resolution as it stands, and some of the highlights are that you could install doorbells or video doorbells. There's an application process, just like for when you do anything else to anything in the building. It would go to it says in the resolution, the president or his designee. Of course, I would certainly make Melina my designee for gathering and bringing applications in bulk for my signature in the same way we do for unit modifications. So it would allow those, they would have to be flush. In other words, no, and I asked for this specifically, no sort of arm cameras, extending out from the door frame, and that starts to get a little bit beyond what we're intending here. We're thinking about discrete, flat things that adhere to the door frame. No drilling, they are battery operated only. And then that the installer of it, which there's a bit about installing, but as Todd Sinkins told me, virtually anybody can install the Ring style camera. It's double-sided tape, basically, with the battery inside of it. So there is a lot of language about installation, but it, of course, is not much of an installation. So it has to be flat, flush, and then, of course, one of the big things is, any damage that were to accrue to the frame, double-sided tape can tear off paint and things like that. So, it of course says that any owner who elects to do this, and if it's approved, no responsibility for any damage that occurs. That's pretty standard and reasonable. A couple of other restrictions by way of height, and this aware of is, according to our attorneys, although video doorbells can be used as a kind of intercom by pushing a button, it would have to be very strictly understood, and you'd have to sign off on this, that you could not video record because that violates Virginia's wiretapping laws, according to our attorneys. So video doorbells may not be used to capture simultaneous video and audio. Videos of doorbells of any type outfitted with audio recording equipment are not permitted, or should be turned off or disabled, I would say, because the use of such devices may violate Virginia's wiretapping laws. I did talk with Todd, our attorney. Merely pushing a button and interacting with someone by audio would not trigger that. It would be the idea, you can't just record the audio going on in the unit. The other restriction is that you can't use it to capture unlawful images, standard things, about, the. that sort of thing. One thing that our attorneys need to convey in the meeting, make sure we just ask, could everybody out there mute their microphones, because we are getting some back noise here. If I can mute all, I will, or if Melina can.
I gave you the right,
Okay, I'm not sure exactly how to mute all, but
to the right, dot, the three dots.
3 dots. Okay. That gets me here. I don't have a mute. Pardon us for a moment. There's some background noise I'm trying to eliminate. Anyway, I'll proceed while we're trying to figure that out. And another thing is, again, what the attorney asked me to reinforce to folks is that in the common areas of a condominium, there is, legally speaking, no presumption of privacy. All right, and so I know that that's a big concern amongst people who are going through the hallway or passing by doors that might have Ring cameras on them. But I was told, because that's the first question I asked, was what can we write in about privacy concerns? And our attorney was very strong in saying there are no privacy protections in the common areas of a condominium, and there's no presumption that any of us can go through the hallways without being informed. The other part of that, though, that I want to acknowledge that people have brought up is that on the end units, namely 11, 12, 13, 14, and 3, 4, 5, 6, the units more or less face each other, such that if you open your door, you're face to face with the door of another unit. If this were to be passed, it would be the case, inevitably, kind of by definition, that when you open your door, if the person across from you has a Ring style camera, that just by geographic proximity and pointing would in fact capture, or could in fact capture you, depending on exactly where on the door frame it is positioned. The other units don't have that issue because they don't face each other directly. So those are things to consider. So those are just some of the context factors and the major things about this resolution. So I've talked too much. I would invite other board members, if they have want to amend the potential resolution, if they feel comfortable with it as is, or whatnot.
In case I missed something, my understanding is, again, Ring being just the catch-all term, that the Ring camera only activates when you touch it. So I live in 606, and of course I have somebody right across from me, and I, like the person who sends the email, I get the paper every morning, and I'm in my PJs, so I need the woman across the hall seeing what I look like. But is it correct that the cameras only activate if you ring the doorbell, or they activate just because you pass it?
They're
all motion.
Yeah.
That's how you catch people stealing
Package.
Okay, so I was prepared to say no until I heard Chandra, so. I don't know where I am now.
Mark or Kyle?
I don't have an issue with this. And I think the earlier discussions at the beginning of this meeting illustrate and demonstrate the need for it.
Could you repeat that one more time?
I said, I'm in support of this, and I think some of the discussions at the beginning of this board meeting illustrate and demonstrate the need that we should pass it.
Thank you. Loud and clear.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what you
And
said?
what he just said was that he's in support of the resolution, that he feels that the prior conversation, particularly from Ms. Turner, I would imagine is the reference there, shows an urgency behind doing so.
Thank you.
Because we now have, you know, a documented case where, you know, there's a safety concern. Where a ring style doorbell would have captured the perpetrator of that event. So, you know, that's something that should weigh heavily on us. And so, my view is that, you know, some reservations notwithstanding about some of the aspects of this, I'm probably more of the view to vote yes, because of the safety concerns that it helps to address. All right.
Why the past board actually rescinded the rule
Correct.
that said that you cannot have.
Correct.
So
Yes, so yes, Mark is absolutely correct. There was policy resolution 95, outlawed, ring style cameras. We overturned that by motion, but we didn't have any supplementing rules and regulations to put that into effect. So this supersedes that resolution 95 is gone and installs these, time, manner and place, restrictions upon it. So, hearing no other board discussion, I would ask if anyone would like to make a motion to pass policy resolution 99. We do have to be very procedurally correct on this because this is more than just a motion, it's a new actual policy. So would anyone like to make the motion that the board adopt policy resolution number 99 as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Valerie Hardy has made the motion. We don't need a second, but anyone like a second?
I second it.
Second myself.
Okay, we'll record the second by Kyle. So motion made by Valerie, seconded by Kyle. And so all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Kyle, how say you?
Aye.
All right, so the motion can be recorded as 4-0, all present voting in the affirmative, and Ginger Boston absent. Okay, and I will sign this. So this will happen is I will sign this resolution as soon as I can print it out. It will then have to be attested by Valerie, and then we'll send it over to the law firm for recordance in our official legal document repository of things. So that resolution is adopted and is in effect immediately. All right. Last thing on the discussion part, and I'll just be very brief, Corporate Transparency Act update only. I got correspondence from, again, our lawyers at Reese Broom that for the purposes of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Act, or FinCEN, or whatever, maybe I'm mangling the acronym, but condo associations were deemed to be under the remit of this Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN. And the board, even though we are not owners of the association, nobody owns the association. Our lawyers have taken the position that we count under that rule, and all of the board members have been asked to provide to register, et cetera, as quote unquote beneficial owners. I'm using that in quotes because we don't really own, but we've been deemed to be the equivalent of beneficial owners, and so we'll be going through that process. I've completed mine. I don't know if others have had a chance to complete theirs, but
I did not, and the reason I did not is that I understood quite to the contrary, that board members are exempt from FinCEN at this point. And I got that from something that Reese Broom had sent out.
okay. We could certainly, loop back with Todd. I mean, Todd's original email to me was that they had, that was their original view, but have not been successful in making their case. So we can certainly, get a new conversation started with Todd and to ask, to clarify any questions that any board member might have. Right, so we can go ahead and that, I'll just say to follow up at the top. All right, that concludes board discussion, management report. I understand that David Hahn had an emergency and couldn't be here tonight, but Melina, you have the floor for whatever summary you would like to give us.
Okay, so, there are several things that are going to be happening around the common area. For instance, landscaping. You guys are contracted to have 100, mums of pansies, installed around the property in the front. I don't know what color you guys want to choose. So that was one of the questions that came up. So if you're okay with me choosing a color, that's fine.
I would ask Bob Greenberg, yeah, I
Talk
talked to Bob and he always gives good advice on that sort of
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
so.
So
I love mums though.
there are gonna be 4-inch and pot size, 4-inch pot size. The portico cleaning is gonna take place. I understand that, over time it gets a little dirty up top, so that's gonna be power washed.
The area
And
over
the entrance.
Yeah.
Yes. And then I'm asking for the second floor. Seems like there's a spider that's been having a happy life up there, so we're gonna power wash that down, the web. And also I'm requesting the 2 walls that are at the front entrance, there's seem to be black mold there. I'm asking them to power wash that as well. Andy took care of the one by the pool for me, a month ago, so. The, carpet cleaning, is my understanding that, Hallmark had gone into a contract with CCA Flooring to clean the carpet in the common area. Well, you guys didn't get a chance to get your second cleaning, and I'm working on that, hoping that before the end of October, that will be done. They were looking for the deposit, the final deposit, and that's been processed, but I'm waiting for them to receive that in order to schedule. So that is going to, as you read, going to include the first floor and the 16th floor of, and of course, down here in this area. What else I'm gonna ask them to do? And that's it for the carpet cleaning. So, later the board will make a decision if they want to entertain an agreement with the company for 2025 that will include 2 cleanings. They do have an option to do more, but you guys this year went to two cleanings. So that is a part of tonight's meeting will be discussed by the board and a decision made. If you guys want to engage into that contract with them for 2025. So I still have on my pending task to do is to evaluate the parking. I know that was a concern that came up in the last meeting. It's not forgotten. It's still on the record to be looked at, evaluated, and discussed with the board and plan. So to follow up on the financials, the part of Dave Pond's email was that he will ensure that you guys get it by the end of next week, the variance report and the financials. So I know I'm excited for you guys because everyone is excited about the roll off the dumpster. I apologize for the email. I was trying to make it a draft so that, because I have an appointment in the morning and I didn't want, I wanted to communicate with all. And I put it in the draft, but I don't know how it went out. So I had to say, my apologies for that. I was trying to set it up for Andy. But in case I didn't make it here by 9, but that didn't work out for me. So I apologize for that. As soon as it does arrive, I will send out a notice to everyone to let them know that the dumpster is here.
Still for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have not received notice that they have a problem delivering it tomorrow. They just did not provide me with the time.
But what's the holdup in getting the financials?
Thank you.
We used to get financials, for every board meeting, on time, actually before the meeting. And all of a sudden now it's like, oh, well, it's a week later or, We don't get
Yeah.
them wrong.
Yeah, so I asked that question, you know, June is the end of the year for you guys, so that's critical to make sure, to ensure that those financials are correct before you move on to the July and August financials. He needs to close that out, basically. He did send that out for review to, Gender to review, we didn't receive any comment, I don't know why I don't have an answer for that on his behalf. I've been asking him for it, and
Well, the board has been asking him for that, I know ever since he's been community man. And it's just never happened. And then I don't think it's acceptable. And to me, it's not, I don't want to speak with the board, but it's information that we need and we need it in a timely manner.
yes, understandable. So again, every day I email morning, do you have it yet? Do you have it yet? So today, we emailed his emergency, situation and, that in his note to me that he would have those by next week. All of them, not just the June. So the elevator safety, the elevator, oh, Cal, go
Kyle,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I had the same concern that Mark had, and, I think we really need to get the annual financials definitely before the next meeting. Because we're in October next week, and we don't even know how we finished out in end of June. So I don't know why there's such a delay. And then
Understandable.
to the carpet cleaning, I've been over moving through the things here, but can the ninth floor get cleaned? Because we never got our carpet cleaning in the spring when everyone else did because of the fire. So can the ninth floor be added to those because we never got a cleaning? Over.
Yeah, it will be all floors, Cal. That I think was separate because of the incident. The second cleaning was placed on hold. I think it's because it was in the middle of you guys' annual meeting and plus budget. So I think, the prior manager had placed that on hold. The company, I just saw it, I was having a discussion with the building engineer, Andy. And, he said that, you know, informed me that you guys normally have it for twice a week. So I did my research and found the company, and then I called them and they explained that they were told that was on hold. And they certainly didn't have a problem resuming, but they needed that deposit to do so. So I proceeded on with that.
Okay, thank you. That wasn't conveyed previously.
No worries. And it will be all floors. That's what their goal is, clean all floors.
All right.
So then, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Continue.
So then the elevator safety inspection, it's gonna take place October the 16th at 3 a.m. So it will not affect you guys while they're doing the testing. I understand that this happened last year. It was successful. So that's, going to be October the 16th. There's one more
And
thing.
you mentioned elevators.
Yes.
I've noticed that the elevators are making a very heavy clunking noise again.
Yes. Mhm.
Which is usually if I have a problem.
Very good. I noticed it just the other day, first.
Okay, I've noted that and we'll, discuss with Andy.
Yeah, and I mean, if they come into load test, it's a good time to maintain all the parts and pieces.
Yes. Okay, the next meeting is going to take place October 24th. So these things I'm telling you because it's before the meeting, the next board meeting. But I will be emailing the board in regards to the November, December meetings, because the November meeting falls on the 28th and December, of course, you know, it's right after Christmas. So I will be emailing the board, asking some options, for the next meeting dates for November and December.
It's historically, we have not met in November or December,
Oh, really?
or we've
Okay.
often not met in, so we can decide next time if it merits doing so, but, there's certainly ample precedent for not meeting in November or December.
Okay, all right. And the final thing is on October the 15th, I will be at a mandatory meeting with, Legman Norman. I asked Sheila Baker to fill in at the front desk, so we can have a second person to, support, Andy while I'm out of the office. And that's October the 15th. Now, I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. The only thing I wanna, note, on that, speaking of financials, in addition to that, I remembered last week that when we received the audit statement from Gold Clang CPA some months ago for the FY 23 completed audit, there were some questions amongst members, about some of the methodology or some numbers that weren't tying off to our satisfaction. So I just I'm gonna try to get them, they were not available when Pat had asked them to come and essentially talk us through it. So we'll reach out to them again so they can clarify anything for us. So that when we are satisfied with the audit, opinion statement and its supporting mathematics, that we can do so with confidence. So we'll go ahead with that. General business, three things tonight. First off is the Verizon final design report. I promise this is not the same thing that I've signed 2 times already. This is different and represents some progress. It's a very long document. It comprises probably the majority of the pages in the board packet. Showing basically just how the Verizon company is going to proceed to put the little, if you see above where I'm pointing there, these little tracks there that where wires are put in, and they are also in the common areas. It just outlines, what it's gonna do floor by floor. And obviously, except for the first floor, it's the same on every floor. Is there any board member that wants to speak to this or ask a question about it or make a motion to approve it? I don't.
And did you stress that it's the design report?
It's the design report. We've already signed on the permission part, but this is the actual to approve their design. So
I don't think anybody sitting on this board has the credentials to approve this design. Frankly.
I mean, we could certainly table it until we could ask, we could seek external counsel on it.
But they're not asking you to approve the design, they're just asking you to look at the route, it's not the design, it's the routing and what they're gonna be doing in the hall.
Would it be more accurate to call it their plan?
Their plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the Verizon plan as presented in the board books?
I'll make
I'll make a motion.
All right, Mark makes that
As
motion.
long as we should follow the plan.
Okay. Duly noted, actually, the Verizon final plan, as denoted in the board book, moved by Mark, seconded by Valerie, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Kyle, your vote?
Aye.
Aye, okay, 4-0. Oh, go ahead, Kyle. Oh, I said aye, okay. Next up is tree removal, and this is from, scroll down here for a moment, Avanza. The amount in question here is $2,046.99. Melina, is there anything unusual out of the ordinary? Any context we need to know here, or should we just proceed to discuss? Is it just normal, nothing unusual going on?
Well, I know that there are branches falling off these trees. So,
Okay.
to be honest with you, I'm used to speaking with an arborist before a landscaper because they're more to say whether a tree is diseased, whether it should stay up or be cut down. So, I mean, you can certainly table it and I can ask more details as to how they're going to trim this if you want, but
Okay.
that's what I'm used to when it comes to trees on property.
Okay, should we table this then? So, okay, so table pending, that discussion. Until we, know a little bit more about the health of the trees, so we don't have to start cutting unnecessarily. Okay. All right, tabled for next time. Moving on, the next thing is CCA Floors and Interior. This is a renewal. Carpet cleaning, and there are some options here, so, I'm reading option 1, restoration carpet annual cleaning, 2, semi-annual and quarterly. Can you remind me which one we are proposing it? 2, this is the semi-annual, so this is the $5,143. Anybody want to talk to this before we take a motion on it? All right, hearing none, does anyone want to make a motion to approve the contract with CCA Floor and Interiors for option 2, carpet cleaning semi-annual in the amount of $5,143 and no cents? Okay, moved by Mark. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Kyle, you said, are you in agreement?
Aye.
Aye, all right, 4-0 is the recorded vote. General business is now dispensed with. We're gonna return now to owners open forum. And so back to where we were. Hey, how are you, Susan?
I'm Susan Thompson, Unit 1503. And I just wanted to ask, until I saw all this stuff in the board packet, I did not realize that balconies were limited common areas. I knew the smoking had been banned in the common areas, which I thought were in lobbies and hallways and stuff. But is smoking banned on the balconies? Because I've got a couple of friends that smoke, and right now they go out and smoke on the balcony. And thank goodness they've never come to see me together, because, you know, and it's not a lot of smoke, nobody's ever said anything. But, you know, I just thought, you know, that was a good thing. They were trying not to smoke in my unit. But should they not be smoking on the balcony? Is smoking outlawed on our balconies?
That's that's a very good question that does raise some important legal and theoretical points, which is, you know, the balcony is, for the education of the whole community, a limited common element. We do not own our own balconies, but they are limited or reserved for the exclusive use of that particular unit owner, much like the door. Your door is a limited common element, right? Because you don't own the door, but nobody else can use your door but you. So I would have to say it's a gray area right now, because we have said that smoking is not allowed in common elements. But I don't know, and I've looked back, I don't know if any board has ever specified whether limited common elements were meant to be construed that way. Kadana, do you have any?
As governance committee, on several occasions, I took the approach that it is restricted on the balconies, because the problem we were facing was cigars. And those are rather noxious, and they were quite offensive to the neighbors. And this is particularly true on the inner part of the building, where you're sitting a foot from your neighbor going like, creating a major cloud. The other thing that has been a real problem, but that was easy to take care of because you could figure out where it came from, was people dropping cigarettes and stuff off the balconies, and people on the first floor are not your ashtray. And so
That's still happens. I still get it. Happen, I mean, depending on the wind, it could happen to people who are not on the first floor. I had cigarette butts on it was on the 6th floor. So obviously it blew in, so, Barbara.
Barbara Rosen, 809 and 614. So at my time on the board, we did not consider limited common elements to be common elements. But we have always, I believe there is a rule, I don't think it's in the bylaws, I think it was a rule that you have the right to have a smoke-free environment in your own unit. And I would extrapolate that to include the balcony as a common element. So again, to the question that you may want to talk about with the attorneys, if we haven't been able to enforce that adequately, then how would we enforce a ban? Because we have that rule in place already, right? And that's to Donna's point about, you know, she has gotten good at smoke proofing her unit and other units to keep the smoke inside. You know, keeping the smoke outside of hers and inside of other units. That, you know, I think enforcement is a real issue, and I don't know that we've been really successful. I will say, just to be really blunt, a couple of the smokers that we've had in the building have just died. So. There is that. And then, just another quick point about the financials. So I served on the board for 12 years as treasurer, as you know, I can count on one hand over that 12-year period, the times that we did not have the financials in time for our board meeting. You don't know where you're standing with financials, with delinquencies. I just don't get it.
I concur.
The simple thing is to give a deadline. That's what happens in every single organization, you know, you give a deadline and they are supposed to comply. That's it.
Jenny?
If the arborist does say that the tree is diseased and needs to be removed, is it going to be replaced?
I would wait for a recommendation. I mean, I guess we would wait for a recommendation from the arborist. I never contemplating having an arborist on staff, but a consultant arborist will be brought into play. Mark has.
There is a rule in Alexandria that if you remove a tree after.
Canopy.
Okay,
In county,
okay, so we have to plant
The
the
canopy.
yeah.
Okay.
We had a similar in Florida.
I just have a couple kind of throwing out comments. And 40607. I'm not in the real estate business, but I presume that when you have a smoke-free building, that's an asset when you go to sell a condo unit. I'm throwing that out because, and I agree with whoever said that, I think it was Barbara, a couple people have died. Smoking is a terrible addiction, and I'm saying that because I have addictions, everybody has addictions, but it's a terrible, and people really have to quit smoking. Secondly, about the windows and so forth, I happened to be yesterday on Duke Street going towards the west end, Cary East over there, Duke Street and North Quaker Lane, that big building that's up there. There was this huge leak that I could see where the building, you could see where something was going on there. You couldn't see the water, but you could see the dampness going floor after floor right there. And so what I'm saying to everybody is, let's get going on this window thing, because I don't want to be in a situation, and this fellow here that was down in Florida, where the building may be condemned because something terrible happens. I mean, the longer we delay, the more expensive it's going to be. And it doesn't make any sense. This has been going on for so many years. And I personally, I don't know how much longer I'm even going to be able to live here, but to have the building condemned is not the way to go. If it becomes almost, it's so damaged that it can't be replaced.
Thank you.
Hank London, 1008. I just, regarding the smoking, I am no longer a smoker, like 40 years now, but, and I don't like cigarette smoke, but I just think the board should consider that it's just not reasonable to change the rules in the middle of, I mean, I can see having a rule that you can no longer move into the building if you smoke, but I don't think it's reasonable to make people who do live here, who have lived here for 20, 30, 40 years, telling them that they can no longer smoke in their units.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm Christine Posnock in 1009, and I was just listening online, and I heard the statement, everyone's entitled to a smoke-free unit. Well, my bedroom stinks of cigarette smoke every single day. Usually it seems like 3 separate times during the day.
Right.
I've tried everything. It's coming through an electrical plug. And so put the plug, where's the plug on? Well, I want to use my electric plug. No, you can stuff them. No, tried it.
I have now taped it with Scotch tape around all the seams, where it's open. I have placed plugs in there. And my next step is to caulk around the plate. But I think it's seeping through where the plug goes into the plug of the appliance goes into the wall. So I'm getting really sick of it and I want to beat somebody up.
Alex, you had your hand. Oh,
Where
sorry.
is it coming from?
Sorry. can you-
Where is it coming? Is this the column I've been hearing about? So it's either 1008 or 1010?
I would say, I mean, if it's an electrical outlet, I would my view would that it would be coming from your horizontal next door neighbor who, because the only thing, dividing you is drywall from that point. So in fact, those plugs are so close together that when I had an electrician come in to do something on mine, they accidentally messed with the other, the other unit. So I mean, they're that close. So I would say that's probably your horizontal neighbor.
So what do I do about it?
Well, as of right now, smoking is not banned in the individual unit, so the only recourse is some sort of remediation.
I was asked to help a very heavy smoker. I happen to know him, and he was mortified by the fact that I told him that when he kept his window open, he managed to throw the smoke all the way down the hall. So we look like, and a few people are sitting here as neighbors, and he goes, oh my God, because he couldn't smell it. This noise, his nose died. We went and took stuffing and took it around the box. And we managed to get into the one that was next door. We sort of insulated it that way. And it was an experiment. It seemed to work.
Well, I've done everything I can do on my side. So you're saying I go to the person next door and say, close up
Have
your.
you stuffed around the
I'm sorry, that sounds like a fire hazard to put
Yeah,
stuffing around.
and plus they sell, is what they sell to go in there for drafts. It's foam, so the smoke will go through the foam because of the ventilation system.
Well, what we tried, and I talked to the fire people, because we used to have the fire marshal used to live in our building. And we took the insulation, not foam, and we put it around the metal box on the outside. They didn't have a problem with that. We taped it to the outside and then we put everything back in. And he said, I don't have a problem with how that is applied because you can put insulation.
I think Alex wants to make a point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I sympathize with my neighbor on the 10th floor. I get the same issue that, the smoke comes not only into the living room from the hallway, it then permeates into the bedroom and the air return is not in the bedroom. And so even though, again, I'm running, a HEPA filter that's rated for a much larger space, it still stinks like cigarette smoke in my bedroom, even though I don't smoke. I don't think it's a reasonable thing to say everyone else should just have to put up with it because we have people that smoke here in the building. The other issue from my perspective is each person is entitled to quiet use and enjoyment of their own unit. And at the point that there's cigarette smoke infiltrating units from another unit or from someone at the exterior of the building, I think that's the common law court of nuisance. And I think there's a legal remedy available. It seems like it would be a waste to have neighbors litigating over things like this when we could just pass a rule and say, look, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to allow smoking in the building anymore. And I recognize that there's, a variety of opinions about this issue. Some people feel like it should be grandfathered in, but again, if someone wants to consume nicotine, there are alternative means to do that, right? Like you're not restricted to just smoking cigarettes. People can use Nicoderm patches or any other transdermal approach. And they can also use vape. So, saying that someone can't smoke in the building isn't saying that they can't continue to consume nicotine. They can do Nicorette if they want to. They just can't create a situation where the other unit owners here in the building aren't able to enjoy their units. And we've already had one person this evening talk about, the stress that's created from someone engaging in inappropriate conduct in the building. And I'm not trying to marginalize that in any way, but I feel like we need to be mindful that this is a community and, you know, where we can't be at least civil to each other, that's an issue. And where we aren't being considerate of each other and it's affecting people being able to use their units and enjoy their units, that's an issue too. And that's the board's responsibility to address those situations.
May I?
Thank you, Alex. Yes, back to, unless there's anyone else who hasn't spoken yet. Okay.
Yeah, two things. One, I'm confessing that you can probably shoot me later. But I would suggest that we get a club, a little community here, a little committee of maybe 3 or 4 people to look at, you know, one, how big a problem is this? And what is the specific nature of it? Do we have a whole bunch of people that are experiencing what you are? And let's get a real handle on what are we doing? Is this every unit, every other unit, whatever? But the other problem I had is that I have major problems with certain odors and cooking orders. And they were driving me bonkers. And when I moved in here, I mean, my kitchen, no matter what the time of day, whatever, it smelled like garlic. And I had it. So I just taped the common vent, and that was 40 years ago, and I haven't burned the place down since then. But it made a whole big difference. So let's figure out what the problem is. And discuss, get the people that are doing it involved. When I did that with a couple of people, they were mortified. They had no clue that their activity was offending and affecting other people. I mean, one of them had to get more inhalers because she had really bad asthma. And they were mortified. And let's get them involved. Let's not make them the criminal. They're not trying to do this. But I just recommend that we make this a little bit more friendly approach to getting this handled.
Would anyone else like to, either on this or other subjects, the last couple minutes, or any others, open for Ms. Tweedle, with caution, I will.
Yeah. I noticed that you sent me an email saying we will have the next board. You never even acknowledged receipt of my 3-page letter.
Yes, I did. I did in fact email you.
Well, you emailed saying we have another board meeting. You never said.
You indicated that you were locked out of some meeting, but the last board meeting was actually in October, in August. There has been no board meeting since the late time of August. So there's been no place from which you've been locked out. And so that's why I indicated that.
All right, the appropriation of my, as you said, 7 millimeters or whatever.
Miss Tweedle,
Yes.
I'm going, everyone in this room knows that what kind of meeting I try to conduct and the spirit in which I try to conduct it. And so I hope that everybody will understand that I don't use the powers of the chair in a capricious or overly overbearing way. But I do have to rule in this instance, as is my authority as the chair, to rule you out of order. It's a dilatory remark that is not contributing any further to the proceedings. And so I'm gonna have to, with regret, withdraw your recognition. All right, if there are no other contribution, yes, online, please.
Yeah, the chat, Miss Marianne Collins. So I'm just gonna, it's very long here, but let's get to the smoking part, because the first part here speaks of animals, you know, the rules ban on animals, but because of the new law, they have to have notices to have large dogs and so forth, the service dogs and so forth. So I'm gonna move down to the marijuana part. Raises She raised this because she predicted that the board will get multiple doctor certifications, she's speaking of marijuana, that marijuana is required for anxiety and other medical reasons. It is common treatment for pain and for cancer. The smoke from a resident using marijuana for medical, mental health reasons can create more frustrations for non-smoking residents. For that reason, I believe that mitigation strategies should be a better course of action and will satisfy the legitimate issue raised by residents who are suggesting grandfathering current residents. People with strong feelings about smoking bought their unit knowing that the building did not ban smoking. So that's the answer.
Anything else from online that we didn't get to?
So that was
Just
the
of what you
call,
did?
that was in the comments. I see no hands up.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Someone did, message me directly, so I'll just acknowledge the question, which is what if someone objects to the camera facing their door, you know, in that the resolution has been passed, and so that question is, I think, mooted at this point. I would ask if there is a motion by a board member to recess into executive session for the purpose of discussing delinquent accounts, personnel matters, legal, and other protected items. We'd like to move that motion.
I motion.
All right, moved by Mark, seconded by Valerie. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, it passes unanimously, and we will now recess into executive session.
Oh, I know. It takes a minute, doesn't it?
Yes.
I am to resume, to leave executive session. So moved by Valerie, seconded by Mark. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion
Aye.
carries. We now are returning to open session. I don't know that I see anybody.
There are people.
There are
in the
people.
room.
Okay, so let's.
You want me to admit them?
Yeah, just readmit them.
And I have done so.
Uh-huh.
Do you
And
want
let's wait
documentation?
until,
Yeah,
yes, please.
yeah, so we come back into 8:56. Let everybody, there's a couple joining here. Just let the join happen before I adjourn. Unless it takes too long.
I have one more person trying to get in,
Yeah.
that's Alex.
Yeah, we'll give it a minute in case there's a technical problem, but just hold on for you. All right. Doesn't appear that that's gonna be successful. All right, so executive, we have returned to open session at 8:56 PM. There were no items from executive session requiring action by the board, so therefore no votes are going to be taken or nor motions in order. And if there is no other business before the board, I declare the meeting adjourned at 8:57 PM.